Hi, I'm Ashley, and today I am going to show you my first commission painting. I've also done this previously in a previous sketchbook that I did a sketchbook tour on. This is actually how I got this commission. It was one of my mom's friends saw this that I posted on Facebook, just a picture of it, and she wanted it for her daughter's birthday. So now I am doing my very first commissioned painting, and hopefully it turns out. Or I'll redo it, basically. So I'm gonna start with just getting that first line in, that hill. And so it just is kind of a little bit of a jagged hill here, and that's the first line. And then I need to draw in the windmill in the background. So I'm gonna start with the roof of the windmill just so that I can kind of get the distance correct away from the hill where I want it. And so I'm just going to put the roof line, and it's very, very, very subtly arced. It's not a drastic arc there at all. And it comes decently close to this edge, but not that close because there's got to be room for the blades of the windmill here. So I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser, rub some of that out, and make it a little bit smaller here. Okay, now down from that, I'm just going to put in the walls of the windmill. Okay, now I've got to get the roof, and so it just comes straight up from the center of this column. And then there's a little kind of triangle point on the top, and then a steeper slope down to the edges. And so just breaking these shapes down into smaller shapes, and that keeps it from being overwhelming. So, you know, I just started with a line, just simple, and that's organic. That's a hill, so it doesn't have to be anything really precise. And then getting a little bit of the perspective in with just a single line of whatever structure, and getting it the distance from the edges that you want, the distance from whatever other objects you have, and then from there building up. So doing 2 straight lines for the walls, that's pretty simple, just do a line, right? And then the roof line, finding where you want the points to converge at the top, and drawing down from there, or up to there, however you feel comfortable drawing lines. Okay, and I want these to be a little bit darker here on the roof because that's going to be a dark colored roof anyway, and then I won't risk like masking it when I go over and do the big wash on the sky. So I'm just drawing it in a little bit darker now that I have the shape that I want there. Okay. All right, and then there's going to be a few windows on the building itself, and they're really small in the picture. I think I'm going to make them a little bit larger. And so basically it's a square. Okay, and then it's kind of a recessed window. So put it in like that, and then that'll help with the perspective of the piece too. So you can see kind of up into the window there. And then this side, there's going to be another one, so trying to get it kind of similar height here. Okay. And this is going to be the opposite. So you're going to see this side. Okay. And it looks like little eyeballs right now, which is kind of funny. Okay. So there is the basic windmill shape. So now we have to go in and add in the actual spinning part of the windmill, the blades. So off of the roof, there is like, I really have no idea what any of these parts are called, but there's a section sticking out and it comes off as an angle like this. And again, I'm just looking at shapes, so it's kind of like a triangle here that I'm making. And then it goes up from here and there's a square here. Okay. The top of the square you can't really see because the blades how they come out end up covering it, so we don't have to worry about that much. But we're not going to see this line back here, so I'm going to go ahead and erase it just so that it doesn't confuse me later. And then I'm going to bring this line down here. Okay. And then this angles kind of down and back farther. It has to, or else the perspective wouldn't make sense, because we can't see the top of it. So just angle it down farther and then finish that kind of square. Okay. So that part is sticking out this way. And then I'm going to add the blades. And if I get this sketch down, then the painting of it will be much easier. And the painting of the windmill should be super easy, really, because I'll have the sketch, and then it's just the painting of all the flowers and everything surrounding it that I'll be not really scared about, but maybe a little scared. First time selling stuff. Scarier, right? Okay, and then from there we have the blades. So they kind of cross underneath this thing. Come here and just do a straight-ish line. And then it comes down all the way toward that edge of the page. And then we do the same thing on the other side. And this one's the closest to us, so that one's going to be the longest. This one's going to be relatively lower on the page to look shorter. Okay. And then this one comes out kind of in front here, like so. Okay. So there's my X. Now, this top blade is kind of at a very steep angle to us, so it just kind of looks like a big blob of darkness, and you can't really see the details in it. So I'm just going to thicken up kind of that line, bring it down to the cross, and then there's like a little spot in the back that I guess helps support the blade, and that crosses and goes down into the other one. And then this is thicker also. Okay. And that kind of comes across both sides. And so on this one that's more facing us, you can see it more. Okay, and then we have the blade itself here. I'm gonna come down, and these are fairly rectangular, so they're gonna come down pretty parallel to that central line. I'm gonna kind of go over the detailed drawing on this, and then the painting, I'm just gonna kind of take a step back away from the talking and do more of a time lapse for the painting, just cause I've done the other way, where I've done more time lapse on the drawing, and this time I'm gonna do the opposite. So, because I really think if you can get this drawing in, again, like the rest of it is very organic, and so it doesn't have to be as precise or yeah, precise, that's the right word, so I'm just gonna leave it with that. It doesn't have to be as precise to still get the point across. Okay, so then this blade looks a little bit more curvy, just because of the perspective that it's at, and then it comes down kind of a steep angle there, and then comes in like so. And this kind of central line should be a little bit curved also, to make it all make sense together. And then down here, you kind of have where it starts is all muddled up with the other blades, but I'm just gonna kind of add a line there and a line here, and then just meet them. Okay. Now the stuff that's behind this, I'm gonna leave, and I'm gonna paint it all in, because these are open, like open frame blades. So you're gonna see the stuff that's behind them. So just drawing in that kind of central support beam on all of this, kind of just thicken it up, make it a little bit darker. Okay, I think that that'll work. This one looks a little bit too long, so I'm just gonna shorten it a little bit and decide on where I want it exactly. See, that perspective, that proportions looks a little bit better to me. I'm not sure what angle that's at. I wish I could tell more in the photo, but I can't. But I feel like it needs to be just a little bit wider. So I'm just kind of going off of instinct here versus off of the actual reference photo, because I can't exactly tell what's going on. It looks super skinny in the reference photo, but when I'm drawing it, that looks weird. So I'm just gonna change it and make more sense in my brain, at least. And there can be a little bit of a danger's not really the right word, but danger to doing that, because we kind of get perceptions of what we think things should look like in our brain, and it's just not always right. So there is a danger of doing that. So if you're drawing from life, you do want to try to draw the things, the shapes that you're seeing in the proportions that you're seeing, because that's real life. That's what it is. And same with drawing from a reference photo. Like, I know that this is what it is supposed to look like, but I'm just changing it slightly. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there for now, and I'm gonna lighten it up just slightly. So I'm gonna take my kneaded eraser, and instead of erasing with it, I roll it kind of into a log, and then I just roll my eraser over my sketch, and it lifts up just a little bit of the graphite. And it leaves it to where I can still see it very clearly. I didn't lift up all of it, and it lifts it up fairly evenly across the drawing. So that's nice too. All right, so now I want to go ahead and sketch in some flowers, because the flowers are going to be red and white and yellow on the green, leafy, grassy background. So I need to preserve those spaces so that the colors don't get all muddled and messy, and so that the white can actually show up. I do plan on using some white gouache on this. It's not going to be strictly watercolor, but I'm also going to use some line and wash. So, it's more mixed media, I guess, technically, but it's mostly watercolor. So because I need to preserve some of those areas, I'm going to sketch in some of the flowers. With flowers, this is all very organic, like I said, and so they don't have to be precise. They don't have to be perfectly placed. This is a wild flower field with this windmill behind it, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And so I'm just trying to get some of these red, they're going to be red poppies. And the reason that this was kind of a hit with my mom's friend is her daughter has a Dutch background, so Dutch lineage, so the Dutch windmill was kind of struck her. And then instead of it being kind of more traditional Dutch with like tulips, it had the poppies, which really went well because they're from California and poppies are the state flower there, and they're very widely known and seen, and they're obvious in California. So it just kind of worked for her. Okay, so then I'm going to do another kind of large one here. And it's kind of an interesting perspective. The reason I chose this photo and was doing it in my sketchbook initially was just because I thought the perspective was super cool, having this low kind of looking up view across these flowers up to this windmill, and so the flowers are like huge compared to the windmill, and I think that's really cool looking. So okay, so just sketching some rough like petal shapes. They're almost circular, but trying to get those little jagged petals on there. And then some of them you're going to see kind of that center really dark section of the poppy, and then some of them you won't see that, just based on the perspective of each flower. Okay. And I am kind of sketching some of the stems in too, just so that I get a little bit of the perspective in terms of the angle of the flowers too. I think I want to make this one in the middle bigger and make it more, even more of a focus. So let me just come in and get a larger circle here for the center, and that'll help me get know that I'm making it bigger, because I sometimes have problems with that, with just no idea how big I'm making something or how small. If anybody watched my alphabet series, there was some that I was just like, well, that turned out really tiny. And I didn't mean for it to turn out tiny, but it did. So if I take one spot and then kind of decide what that's going to look like, that helps. Okay, so I'm going to make it kind of all the way up to this flower here. And I mean, it's relatively circular, but it's kind of pointed up, so you don't see as much of the spot below the center part where the stamen and everything is as you do above. So there's kind of a petal here that you see, and then there's a petal that's going to be kind of flopping down that you can see. And then it kind of comes around and up this way. Okay. Something along those lines. This is another technique that I use with the kneaded eraser, is just kind of dab it to lighten it up. And that gives me more control on where I'm lifting it versus lifting the whole thing evenly. Same idea though, where it doesn't lift up all of it like rubbing. Okay, and then we're gonna do another kind of bigger one down here. Let's kind of point that direction. And then there'll be a few kind of back here. We'll have some coming onto the page. Okay, so those are going to be kind of the main red ones, and then I'll probably throw a few more red ones kind of in the middle here. So maybe one like here, more like closed, maybe a little cluster here, kind of coming up together, something like that. Okay. And then just a few like pops of yellow for dandelions, and those are going to be smaller. Those will be a lot smaller than the poppies. Okay, so just throw in a couple of ovals for that. And then back here, they're going to be really small. Those I'll probably just go over with some yellow paint, and if they don't really show up, they don't show up. Probably do some splatter techniques in the background here where it's really small. And then there's some like small 4-petal white flowers that I really like because they look so simple and like almost fake and like kind of childish looking, but they're really just kind of cool. That, I don't know, flowers are kind of interesting because there's so many different shapes, and you kind of have a picture of like a typical flower, and there's just so many more options. So these ones I like, that are like these cool 4-petal ones. So trying to get some of those with some different like perspectives. So make it like this one. It kind of looks like the petals are flopping down a little bit. Okay. All right. I think that is good in terms of the sketch. So now we're going to get on to the actual painting. And again, I'm going to do very little to no talking during this. It's going to be more time lapse. thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed watching this process of sketching and then the time-lapse painting of my very first commission painting. This was really fun to do, and if you like it, please like the video and check out my channel for more content. Thanks. Have an awesome day.